I would like to introduce Mr. Robbie Fletcher, and he is the Commissioner of Education for the Kentucky Department of Education.
Well, good morning to everyone, and thank you to all those that are taking some time from their summer break, if you will. Of course, many of you probably are taking classes or probably working at Summer Boost or working at different things. It never ends when it comes to education, as many people sometimes often think. But again, thank you so much for what you do. I really appreciate your time. Appreciate you being a part of this. I'll provide one update. I know we have a nice agenda, but I do want to make people aware, just kind of a quick, there's several things that are on the legislative committee. I think Dr. Perry's on to talk about some of the things from legislative that happen legislatively, but I will want to share one thing with you. Here at the department, we are having to go back through the procurement process for ACT and SAT. One of the things that happened in the General Assembly at the very end of the on the last day, as a matter of fact, there was language that was added into I think it was Senate Bill 197 that stated that we needed to go through the procurement process. Well, we went through the procurement process, which is overseen by the Finance Cabinet. We went through that a couple of years ago, and SAT won the bid. Now, whether your opinion of SAT is good, bad, or indifferent, the SAT group did win the bid, not only from the technical side or the substance part of the bid, but also too from the financial side. Essentially, we were saving the state about $350,000 per year for the first 4 years, and then that increased through years 5 through 9. So again, they won the financial end of it also too. After going through this session, the legislators felt like we need to go through the procurement process again, and we're going to do that. And we are in the middle of that, as a matter of fact. I think that the bidding ends in the next week. I think June 22nd, I believe, is when it's ended. But we met with the Council on Post-Secondary Education. We did some amendments to the RFP, the request for proposals, and then we're waiting for those to come in. We've also answered questions that have come out, but again, this is all seen by the Finance Cabinet. And we're also expanding our scoring group. We're including in our technical advisory capacity, we're including a district assessment coordinator from a local school district. And we're also including someone from CPE as part of the scoring team when it comes to looking at the rubric. The reason why I share this with you is it puts us in a situation, and again, the Finance Cabinet has been great to work with with the governor's office, but the process itself doesn't happen overnight. As you can imagine, in state government, everything moves at the speed of not light, but also about the speed of much slower than that, let's just say. And the earliest that we can have a college admissions exam named will be October. So our students are going to start the school year, and our teachers are going to start the school year not knowing which if, and again, I'm not aware of who all bid, but if we have two different bidders, which of the two or others that would be a part of the college admissions will be the college admissions test for the upcoming spring. Again, we have to legally provide one, even though I think all of our schools in the state of Kentucky are now test optional. It's typically used for scholarships and things of that nature. But again, with that being said, we are going through the process. We're waiting for that to end, and then we'll go through the scoring. And if everything goes smoothly, October will be the earliest. Now, there's a lot of other updates I could give you, but I don't want to take away from others in the PowerPoint presentation. So I'll stop there, and then offer just an opportunity for anyone to ask questions if they'd like. Any questions for the commissioner? Now, the Student Advisory Council eat me up. I mean, they will absolutely fire question after question after question. We usually have to schedule a long period of time for the students. So teachers, you're more than welcome. You're very welcome to ask a question, maybe not even related to the SAT, ACT, or others that you may have burning on your heart. And if I can answer it, I will do my best to do so. I used to teach calculus, so my wait time is pretty good. Okay, not seeing any hands or anything of that nature, I'll turn it back over, and I will be on this call for a period of time. I'll step out for a little bit for a phone call, and then I'll be back in. But again, I want to say thank you for what you do. I mean, to me, there's no greater calling of a profession than being a part as a teacher, to be honest. It's something I miss, being a classroom teacher. It's one of the things that even though there are a lot of tough days, there's many more days where I enjoyed being in the classroom with students. And I don't even know if I can remember the tough days, to be honest. So we do appreciate what you do. I appreciate what you do. And again, as I always say, it takes someone to be all in to be a teacher in our schools. And I just want to say thank you for that. We'll continue to lobby for increased pay, things of that nature. But again, just want you to know, I don't care what the salary is, you're worth so much more than whatever number we can put on it that we can. So again, thank you so much. And I'll turn it back over.
Thank you so much.
And Megan, one more time, sorry. Can somebody confirm? I believe we're having a technical difficulty here. Does the slide that you're seeing on the screen say welcome with Dr. Fletcher's name under it?
Yes.
Okay. Just the banner is lying to us then. Okay, that is all I needed. Thank you. Back to you, Megan.
Okay. So we will move along to the roll call of members. I will go through and call each name, and if you are here, just say present, and if not, I will move along. Megan Hall, Fayette County, I am here. Amber Hinkle from Bell County.
I am here.
Perfect. Heaven Daly, Boone County. Okay, moving along, Scott Bratcher from Breckenridge County. Okay, Amy Leesgang from Bullitt County.
I'm sorry.
I am here.
Perfect. Brooke Leffingwell, Campbell County. Jessica Hobson, Christian County. Mandy Perez, Crittenden County.
I'm present.
Kristen Morgan, Danville Independent. Sarah Lizer, Fayette County. Wendy Young, Fayette County.
Present.
Perfect. Emmanuel Anama Green, Harlan County.
I'm present.
Wonderful. Tyler Saylor, Harlan Independent.
Present.
Joseph Stivers, Jefferson County.
Present. Happy summer.
Happy summer. Robin Ballinger, Jefferson County.
Present.
Perfect. Becky Spies, Kentucky School for the Blind. Okay. Tony Prater, Kentucky School for the Deaf, sorry. Corey Burns, Mercer County.
Here.
Nick Schaffner, Middlesboro Independent. Jason Davidson, Russell County.
Present.
Wonderful. Casey Page, Shelby County.
Present.
And Shane Baker, Warren County.
Present.
Wonderful. Thank you all so much for being here today. Okay, our next item on the agenda is to approve the agenda.
This is Wendy Young. I make the motion to approve the agenda.
Wonderful. Does anybody have a second?
Emmanuel Anama Green, I'll second.
Wonderful. So I will just go through the list of names, and if you wouldn't mind to state your name and whether you are in favor by saying aye or not in favor by saying nay, and we will conduct a vote to approve the agenda. Ready? Amber Hinkle,
Aye.
Kevin Daly, Scott Bratcher, Amy Leaskay. Brooke Leffingwell, Jessica Hobson, Mandy Perez,
Aye.
perfect. Kristen Morgan, Sarah Lizer, Wendy Young,
Yeah. Aye.
thank you. Emmanuel, Tyler Saylor,
Aye.
Joseph Stivers,
Aye.
Robin Ballinger,
Aye.
Becky Spies, Tony Prater, Corey Burns,
Aye.
Nick Schaffner, Jason Davidson,
Aye.
Casey Page,
Aye.
Shane Baker.
Aye.
And with that, ayes have it. Thank you all so much for voting. And I would also like to approve minutes from the last meeting. Would anybody make a motion to approve the minutes?
Amber Hinkle, I'll approve.
Thank you. Would anybody have a second?
Second, Joseph Stivers from Jefferson County.
Thank you. And we will go through the vote just like we did. If you wouldn't mind, just make sure your microphone is on so I can hear. Thank you so much. Amber Hinkle,
Aye.
Kevin Daly, Scott Bratcher, Amy Leaskay,
Aye.
Brooke Leffingwell, Jessica Hobson, Mandy Perez,
Aye.
Kristen Morgan, Sarah Lizer, Wendy Young,
Aye.
Emmanuel,
Aye.
Tyler Saylor,
Aye.
Joseph Stivers,
Aye.
Robin Ballinger,
Aye.
Becky Spies, Tony Prater, Corey Burns,
Aye.
Nick Schaffner, Jason Davidson,
Aye.
Casey Page,
Aye.
and Shane Baker.
Aye.
With that, the ayes have it. Thank you all so much.
So our next agenda item is a legislative update from Brian Perry, the Director of Government Relations.
Hello, go to the next slide. And one more. There we go. So heading into the session, what became House Bill 257 was our top priority. Happy to say it did get across the finish line. This was our big accountability bill. So this was the work of the Kentucky United We Learn Council over the past 2 years. The commissioner and I started working on the legislative side of this about a year ago. So it's been a long process. I think that at the end of the day, this is kind of the first step and what will hopefully be kind of a multi-step process. So anyway, we'll run through the changes of 257. Commissioner, feel free to jump in at any point. So one of the big changes that you'll see with 257 is going back to student growth. So getting away from looking at change of cohorts of students and going back to the individual student growth. Pretty much everybody was in favor of that. Dr. Stafford and her team have started working on kind of what that will look like. It's a lot of decisions yet to be made on that front, but starting to look at that. And then, so the state indicators will continue to include math, reading, and social studies. On-demand writing and editing mechanics have been taken out. And so that was one of the changes to sort of reduce the testing time. And I will mention here that our initial proposal really did more in terms of reducing testing because we had proposed a new interim assessment that would be aligned to the summative assessment, and that would have cut out a testing window. And so unfortunately, that didn't get a lot of traction yet. I think we still kind of hear folks in the annex nibbling around the edges of that. So hopeful that we can, circle back to that at some point in the future.
I'll
Another
add
big-
to that,
oh,
Brian.
sure.
One of the things that everybody on here, you either have MapStar, iReady, or something of that nature. We were hoping that we could get funding from the state to pay for interim assessments, even if we allowed districts to select their own, so that it didn't have to be one uniform. But we gave the option of like whoever the vendor would be. And again, we're looking at, we have to bid out the state testing vendor coming up in the next year, I believe. But that being said, we would want to align those interim assessments with whoever got the overall state bid, and a district could opt in to, let's just say hypothetically, iReady or NWEA with MAP had won the bid, then we would have this NWEA would give the state assessment, but all your windows in the fall and in the winter would be aligned to the state test. So that would remove all your other windows. If you opted in on the state assessment and the state interim, it would basically eliminate your other windows that you're doing for MapStar and iReady or whatever your process would be. So that was one of the original proposals, but that did not pass, unfortunately. But again, that would have really cut testing time for so many, for so many districts. You look at a map or star and iReady window, and that could take up to 2 weeks in some districts, depending on how many computers you have and things of that nature. So go ahead.
Sure.
Barry?
So another big change is that chronic absenteeism will replace the school climate and safety survey in the accountability system, in the accountability model. So the survey will still be available for districts to use as part of their local assessment. However, it will not be included in the state calculation. I will say that part of this was not necessarily KDE's idea. This came from the legislature, in part because 36 other states already include chronic absenteeism in their accountability models. So I think there was a real push to include it for that reason. Now, I will say that I think the commissioner would agree that the most kind of exciting part of 257, the most important part, is that local accountability piece. And so districts will be encouraged to create local accountability systems. We've sort of shifted to calling those local indicators of quality because there really is just one accountability system. That's the state accountability system, to try to reduce some confusion. So it's not a shall, it's a may. But districts that do decide to do it must include vibrant learning experiences for students, local measures of performance identified by the community, and then a method of displaying those on a dashboard or something like that. We already have a number of districts that are doing this, and there are some good examples of those dashboards already. The real push here is to get the community involvement. And so we've seen some interest from the state chamber and other stakeholders, and starting to see the value of how this rebuilds trust from the ground up at the local level. Happy to say that we did see on the last day of the session almost $2.6 million get appropriated to support this work. So districts that do decide to do local indicators of quality will be eligible for a one-time offset payment of up to $15,000. And so kind of excited to see that get done on the last day of the session. That's the real quick version of 257. As I mentioned, Dr. Stafford and her team are having conversations now. Kind of what exactly will the chronic absenteeism metric be? What will be the metric for student growth? So still some decisions to be made. And I think I see the commissioner with a hand up.
Yeah, and thank you, Dr. Berry. Again, when it comes to the local accountability, there's several districts. We actually have videos of different districts that are doing a local accountability model. That if you want to get on our website, you can see those. If you just kind of are interested, student achievement is always one of the pillars that a district will utilize, but they have other measures. And again, that comes from their district. And again, it doesn't have. You're not looking at trying to put together a number in some cases, like. For example, I can think of one district in northeastern Kentucky that said, we want to know how all the money is spent. So a district, part of their dashboard includes, what percentage of funds are spent on salaries, what percent spent on student supplies, transportation, things of that nature. So, it's not just can you establish a number? It may be, how do you solve a problem that you're having? Like, one of the things that was in the accountability model was what percentage of our students are involved in extracurricular, co-curricular activities. And a district put together a plan to have every student a part of a extracurricular, co-curricular activity, because again, one of the best metrics for student success is how involved are they outside of the classroom. And again, that's local decision making. We are very thankful for the $15,000, but also too, you can get on our website. There is a toolkit that the Office of Continuous Improvement supports, that put together with partnerships from various groups. This is how you build a local accountability model. So as a teacher, if you're interested in just seeing what that looks like, we do have some resources on our website to help out. The last thing I'll say about this is the districts that are going through this local accountability process are seeing a build-in trust. Superintendent Bullitt County said that we have more students that are coming back to public schools because of the work that we're doing here. Jesse Bacon has talked a lot about the difference that the local accountability model and how they're developing that is building that trust. I've heard from other superintendents talking about how even homeschool parents are seeing that the value in what they can get from the public school system and bringing their kids back as a result of this local accountability model. And again, it's developed by people within the district. It could be, parents, teachers, students, government officials, faith leaders. It could be whatever the group puts together to have that input. Now, there may be some of you that have a local accountability model on here. Feel free to send that information to other members, just so that you can share. At the end of the day, we also want to network districts to make sure that they can work together on these models to meet the needs of the local community. And most importantly, give students more and more opportunities for those vibrant learning experiences. So again, to me, this is the most exciting part. I do like the fact that we're going to change, I'm going from change to growth. And also I did say last thing, one more thing. Even though on-demand writing and editing mechanics is not part of the federal formula for CSI, TSI, things of that nature, we are part of the bill has that local site-based councils will adopt a writing program that talks about writing across the curriculum. So it still is a big part of what we do. I mean, it's huge, but I believe that a local community can come up with a better way to assess writing than I can or we can at the state level. So that's a lot about House Bill 257. I'll try not to chime in as much on the others because we'll be here a long time if I do, but this is a very exciting time, in my opinion, for education in Kentucky.
There's one more
Dr. Berry,
part of
back to you.
257 we need to talk about, Commissioner. Next slide, please.
Oh, sorry.
That's all right. A part of 257 is something that the legislature called targeted quality measures. So for right now, until 2030, these are just going to be reported on your school report card and not included in the accountability system. If nothing changes between now and July 1 of 2030, they would then become part of the accountability system with a weight of no less than 5% as determined by the KBE. And you can see those there. Long way between now and 2030. So I think there's hope on our end that we see this get changed a little bit before we hit 2030. So next slide, in the interest of time. There's a lot to cover. So heading into the session, the KBE put out their list of legislative priorities. I'm happy to say we got a lot of them done. I think for you all, I'll just mention a couple. So probably the thing we heard the most about in terms of cleanup heading into the session was the traceable communications bill from 2025, Senate Bill 281. That did get cleaned up in House Bill 67. I think it covers almost everything that we had heard as issues from the field. We have already put out guidance on the traceable communications portion of that bill. That's already posted on our website. That link's at the end of this presentation or any of my slides, and I'll have that for you in a minute. The other big change I think that this group will be interested in is we asked for some language to replace KEPS using the certification fees that already exist. We already have a pot of money, but we're statutorily limited on how we can spend those dollars. So we asked to a very small amendment to that language. That got across the finish line. So we are in the process of replacing KEPS with what will be a statewide job portal. So teachers or applicants will be able to put in one application for multiple positions across the Commonwealth. On the other end, we're hoping that districts will be able to go in and look and see for positions that they need to fill and who might be interested. So, you know, a school that needs a middle school math teacher will be able to go in and look and see who's looking that meets those requirements. So hopefully it'll be an exciting change. KEPS is woefully outdated. The other thing that we're hoping that this new system will do is give us real-time data on vacancies. That's been a real question coming out of the General Assembly. We have put out a survey the last couple of years to superintendents to try to get real-time vacancy data. So hopefully this will do lots of new and exciting things. So just wanted to mention that. And I see a hand up. So whoever has your hand up, go ahead.
Yes, Amber Hickle from Bell County. Just looking at Senate Bill 207, as a special education teacher, Mr. Fletcher, can you kind of go about what the class size waiver requests that you're talking about? Is that more kids? I'm one of those teachers that have had waivers in the past. Is that all that is allowing those waivers for one or two more children, or is that more than that?
A lot of that, so this gets a little down in the weeds, but if you remember back to last session, there was a bill that moved the waiver process from the commissioner to the board. This was some cleanup language to that so that that allows the commissioner to go back to approving those waivers. We wanted to be able to turn those around more quickly than the board can. And so this was, I think that's the part you're asking about. So there is some language about class size in there in 727 that I'll get to in just a minute though. But this part of it was just kind of a technical cleanup to what they did last session as it relates to those waivers. I think that's all I'm going to talk about here because there's a lot to cover. So next slide. House Bill 500 was the budget bill. A couple of things I'll mention. There is a modest increase in SEEK funding over the biennium. SEEK transportation remains funded about 81%. The commissioner will tell you that as soon as that estimated need came out during the session, we were sending that directly to key legislators. Unfortunately, we're not able to get that fully funded, but we will continue to advocate to fully fund transportation as we move through the next biennium and into the next budget session. And I know it sounds kind of crazy that we are talking about a just completed budget session and are already talking about the next budget, but I will say the KBE has already met in May to start taking those initial steps of what their priorities are going to be for the upcoming budget, because this time next year they will be heading deep into crafting the next biennial budget. So never ends. A big change that happened somewhat under the radar, the academic academies at the universities will no longer, the students that attend those academies will no longer generate SEEK dollars for their home districts. So in the past, students attending these academies, the home district still received the SEEK funding for those students. That's no longer the case. I think that in the legislature's mind, it was sort of a double dip because they provide line item funding for those academies. And so that was the kind of the issue. And I think it's been kind of simmering for a while now, but it's a big change. I think there's some concern both on our end at the university level that this could impact attendance at the academies. I know some districts in the past have provided books and other support for those students, so kind of a big change. The other thing I'll mention here just quickly, the programmatic funding in the budget is under the LARS items. And there's some conversation happening, particularly in the state Senate, on how those are done. A lot of those programs are at the department level and provide services out to districts. There's some thought, I think, that they want to move to sort of a block grant model and send the dollars down to districts. I think that works for some of the programs under LARS, but not all of them. So that'll be a conversation over the biennium, I'm sure. So a lot more in the budget, but that's the highlight. Next slide, please. House Bill 900 was the one-time funding bill. We've seen them do this the last couple of budget sessions. So these are kind of one-time monies. Two big things here. One, we've been tweaking the CTE funding formula for a few years. We wanted to bring in the ATCs into that. In order to hold districts harmless, we thought we needed about $15 million a year. You'll see we got 14, so very close to holding districts harmless as we pull in the ATCs into that supplemental funding formula. So that's exciting. And then one of the big bills of the session was a School of Innovation bill from Senator West, and it included a rather large appropriation of $7.5 million for those three projects. So in the first year of the biennium, there's a project in Covington Independent, and then there's two additional projects to be determined for the second year of the biennium. Each of those funded at $2.5 million. So quite a large pot of money for those projects. As it relates to school construction projects, quite a few things got funded. Probably more importantly, there are a few projects that are in process that did not receive funding. And so I think that will be something we hopefully see get addressed in the short session coming up. So next slide, please. We can probably, so I think the commissioner already touched on the college entrance exam. That language is in 197. That process is already underway, and I'm sure you will hear a lot more about it as we move through the year. This is also where the almost $2.6 million for the accountability systems was included. Next slide. So I've been telling people that just in terms of volume, we tagged about 300 bills out of the gate for having some impact on education one way or the other. There were a lot of property tax bills again this year. We have to kind of look at each one of those because obviously that could have a fairly big impact on districts. So a lot of legislation flying around. A lot more House bills than Senate bills because we have a lot more House members. Of these, Senate Bill 2, that's probably one you all have heard a little bit about. It does limit superintendent and administrator pay raises to mirror those given to teachers in the district. There are some caveats to that. So it's all, and our legislative guidance on all these bills is now posted. So you can get more in-depth information there if you're interested. I think another one that you all will be in, this group particularly will be interested in, is Senate Bill 4. So I'm in my 5th year here at the department, and a continual topic of conversation, or a perennial topic of conversation, has been KTIP and KPIP. Obviously, those are no longer funded and haven't been since I've been around. This is the first real effort I've seen to kind of do a new principal training and mentorship program. So Senate proposed 5 years, House proposed 3, they settled on 4. The first 2 years are with KDE. The 3rd year will be with Truist and the Kentucky Chamber Foundation. And then there's an optional 4th year with kind of a menu of options. So it is a cohort model. It is for first-time principals. So if you're a current principal and move schools, you know, you're technically a new principal, right, at a new school, but not for first-time principals. We had thought we needed about $2.5 million a year to do our 2 years at KDE. It's funded at $1 million a year in House Bill 500. So we are in the process of sort of tweaking what we thought those first 2 years would look like. But Dr. Foster and her team are working on that. The good news is the 3rd and 4th years don't really need to be funded until the next biennial budget because they wouldn't hit until the summer after the budget is done. So hopefully we will see that Truist year and then the optional 4th year funded in the next biennial budget, and perhaps see those first 2 years with KDE get a bump as well. Senate Bill 5 is kind of an interesting one. It was a Department of Ag priority bill. Commissioner Shell, I think, is really pushing to get more fresh local produce and food into schools. This is a much more complicated issue than I had ever imagined until we started working on Senate Bill 5. This is a kind of a looking at the procurement side of things, and I think it's probably the first step. I think we will see the Department of Ag continue to kind of push on this issue. So anyway, kind of an interesting idea, and hopefully we'll see some more movement in that department. Senate Bill 46 finally, I think, is settled now, both in statute and reg, and the accompanying reg is in the process of getting done. But it's a non-school bus transportation of students. Been a long drawn out affair, but I think it's all settled now. Senate Bill 101 is probably one of interest to you all. That was the Common Sense Bill 101. Mandatory expulsion for students that intentionally cause damage to or physical injury to school personnel. We did work with the sponsor on that one as it relates to your special education students, and trying to make sure that the language recognized some of the potential issues with that population. And then 263 is that School of Innovation bill that I mentioned. That also includes, it's kind of a follow-up to last year's Senate Bill 207. That moved the innovation tag from the district level down to the school level and provides a lot of waiver options for schools now. That's the really short summary of what happened in the Senate over the course of the 60-day session. Like I said, our guidance document is posted. That initial guidance document covers all the bills that passed during the session. We will have supplemental guidance on a lot of these coming out over the course of the summer and into the start of the school year. So stay tuned. And then we'll move over to the House. So next slide, please. So a lot of House bills. I'll just mention a couple. Senate Bill or House Bill 1. Heading into the session, I thought this was going to be Senate Bill 1, so right number, wrong chamber. This is the federal tax credit bill. At this point, we are waiting on action at the federal level before the state takes its next steps. So not a lot of updates on that one just yet. Senate Bill or House Bill 4 was an anti-grooming bill that the EPSB and OELE were involved with in favor of. An important step in terms of it defining grooming behavior. It doesn't apply only to teachers, but there is a section about teachers. House Bill 7 just is permissive. It allows districts to put stop arm cameras on school buses. We'll move down to 253. I think that's probably one you all will be interested in. So Chair Tipton got two things that he's been working on done in this bill. So first, his prohibition on 3 queuing. He's been heavily involved in the Read to Succeed work the past 3 or 4 years. So this is kind of building on that early literacy initiative. But then also, he finally got a version of his misconduct bill done. So Chair Tipton has been working on this really since I've been at the department. It got close a few times. But finally got it across the finish line. It does quite a few things. I think most importantly, it prohibits non-disclosures agreements. So again, one that OELE and the EPSB were in favor of and are glad to see get done. 307 is one that we are less thrilled about. We worked on this one quite a bit, but it landed in a spot that we're not totally fond of. It's going to cause some work for the districts. It is looking to get your students proactive admission to the post-secondary institutions, with the goal obviously being of raising awareness of their post-secondary opportunities. You'll see some stuff coming out from OET on this one as we sort of work through the process of implementing that bill. 555 allows for student-based enterprises during the day to sell competitive foods. I think this one just makes sure you stay in line with the federal guidelines. We tried to make that point during as it went through the process. So 562 is another one we worked with the sponsor on quite a bit. It's a new alternative high school diploma. I think the real push here from both the sponsor and our end was to make sure that this was a credential of value, and so that it really has a meaningful value to those students as they look to get into the workforce. So I think that was accomplished. The sponsor did work with other stakeholders, including the chambers. Then I really think that's probably it for the House. Again, if you have any questions on any of these bills, happy to take them. Otherwise, we'll move on to the next slide. I don't see any hands. So House Bill 727 became the omnibus bill. I think it ended up having 6 bills rolled into it. So this is where the class sizes for exceptional children and youth are found. The other big one here, well, 685, that was something we did in regulation that they wanted to codify in statute. And then 71 just added some requirements for your local board members, particularly around financial training. Probably not surprising given some of the news of late. Next slide. So there's the link to our legislative guidance. As I said, main guidance documents already posted, as is an update to our traceable communications guidance, and more supplemental guidance will follow over the coming months. The next slide. So we are in the interim period, so it runs from June to November. If you are interested, I would follow the education and A&R committees. That's where most of the stuff that we have ends up. I will say that they've added an extra IJCE in December the last 2 years, and I imagine they will do the same this year. So stay tuned. And the next slide, I think I have one more. So just as a reminder, it is an election year. If you haven't noticed all the ads, hopefully you participated in the primary, but definitely circle November 3rd and make sure to voice your opinion. Next slide. That's it for me. Unless you have any questions, happy to take them. Again, it's a really quick update on what happened during the session, but that guidance document is posted. I've been telling all the groups that I talked to about this, that as you read through the guidance document, if you still have additional questions on any of the legislation, please let us know. We are always happy to do supplemental guidance or an FAQ for particular bills. Sometimes it's not on our radar till we get questions from the field. So if you have questions, please let us know.
Do we have any questions? Okay, well, thank you so much for being here with us today. We appreciate your time. Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Next up, we have impact of the legislative changes, Senate Bill 197 and 257. With us, we have Jennifer Stafford, Office of Assessment and Accountability, and Shara Savage, Division Director, Office of Assessment and Accountability. Thank you all so much for being here with us today.
Thank you, Megan, and good morning, everyone. I'm Jennifer Stafford, the Associate Commissioner in the Office of Assessment Accountability. And I want to thank you today for the time on your agenda. And we're hoping to really facilitate a conversation with you around some legislative changes. You've heard from Dr. Perry and Dr. Fletcher already. Many of the key components of the legislative changes. So we're going to move through the presentation a bit more quickly than we would, because you have received a good bit of the background. We're going to start first with the college admissions exam, and then we're going to move to asking you your feedback around various components of the new accountability system as brought forward in House Bill 257. We're really seeking your feedback But first, we want to just highlight for you Senate Bill 197. As Commissioner said, it was passed on the last day of the legislative session that requires the Kentucky Department of Education to have a new procurement for the college admissions exam. We, as Commissioner mentioned, we did this last year. The College Board received the contract, and that started July 1st. That would have been for 9 years. That contract was in place. And with this, we have to go through that procurement process once again. You'll see here on the slide that Section 15 that was added to Senate Bill 197 had stipulations for limitations on the use of general funds. But we were able to work with the governor, and if you'll go to the next slide, you'll see that the governor did line item veto part of that bill that restricted the use of general funds. So what was left was the language here on the slide that the department must go through a new procurement. Now, I'll note for you that again, that the Finance and Administration Cabinet facilitates the procurement of all of our contracts. And so we're working closely with them. Next slide. So as we mentioned that this will be in place for the 26-27 school year, and the department is committed to working through this procurement process as we did the last time, to make it fair, make it equitable, to follow all of the model procurement code. There are statutes and guidelines that we must follow to have a contract in place, and we are working with the Finance and Administration Cabinet once again to have that in place. So what it does mean, as the commissioner mentioned, that we will start the 26-27 school year without the college admissions exam to be administered in the spring of 27, it will be unknown. Next slide. Okay, so let me pause there to see if any of our teachers have questions about that process. Okay, if not, we'll move over to House Bill 257 changes, and we are seeking your feedback on a system that is not developed yet. We are developing a system with that has meaningful and useful information back to our students and our teachers and our parents to support continuous improvement. As Commissioner mentioned, Dr. Perry mentioned, the House Bill 257 is a start. We didn't get everything that we had hoped to, but it's a really good start toward making a new reimagined assessment system and accountability program. So we're going to seek your feedback, those big topics of individual student growth. We want to hear from you, what you would like to see in that. We also are going to facilitate and want to know your feedback on chronic absenteeism. And then we're going to ask about the individual weights for each of those and what you see as priorities within the system. So we do not have this system developed yet. We are in the process of gathering feedback and stakeholder input, and you have a very important voice being on the Teacher Advisory Committee. So we want you to either put in chat or open your mics and talk with us through what you would like to see is an accountability system. So I'll turn it over to Shara, who's going to tee us up with a little background on how we got here, some timelines, and then we'll move into individual student growth.
Thank you, Jennifer. Next slide, please. And as you've heard, this House Bill 257 has been signed and passed into law. So next slide, please. So I'll just briefly, you've heard quite a bit about the locally developed indicators of quality. But at high level, what this does for districts and for you as teachers is it allows all students across the Commonwealth to have vibrant learning experiences, which is just about student-centered experiences, which students can apply their learning through projects and partnerships that are connected to their interests and their future goals and aspirations. So if a district does adopt the indicators of quality, then they must, one of the requirements is to on their dashboard, on their websites, post the disaggregated student data and making those results publicly available online. Another piece is that you've already heard that it will that we will give a one-time payment of up to $15,000 to help districts get started. And we will also be providing technical assistance to help districts who choose to opt in get this up and going. Next slide, please. So as Brian touched on, there were included in this bill a few targeted quality measures that will be on the school report card until 2023. First it measures the certified teachers who have advanced credentials, such as the rank 1 or their national board certification. It also includes at the middle school a student in grade 8 earning their high school credit by the end of that 8th grade year. And then at the high school level, it focuses on the FAFSA completion, recognizing both students who've completed the application and those who formally opt out. So next slide, please. So for the 25-26 school year, the one that everyone has just wrapped up, the testing, as I'm sure most of you have seen, the testing for this past year, this past school year, it did not change. So we still had the Quality School Climate and Safety Survey. We still had writing. So all those things were still in place. So everyone will have time to get their mind wrapped around the new program, a state assessment program. And also data reporting also remains unchanged for this fall of 2026. So the data that's coming in, the data side of our office is waiting anxiously to start putting that into the accountability system. So next slide, please. So when you'll start seeing the changes is beginning this 26-27 school year. So for KSA, while testing will continue in the same grade levels, there are a few components being removed from the state testing program. And this includes editing and mechanics, on-demand writing, and the quality of school climate and safety survey. Those are being removed. For the alternate, the AKSA, we see that same approach with that assessment program, with writing and the survey being removed as well. Now, as Dr. Fletcher said, writing continues to be emphasized, and each superintendent will adopt a writing policy and a writing program that includes writing across the curriculum. And KDE will be providing districts with some guidelines and professional learning opportunities to help support writing across the curriculum. Now, in addition to those assessment changes, we see that on the accountability side, beginning for the 26-27 school year. Chronic absenteeism will be introduced as a new indicator. Growth, individual student growth will be introduced as a new indicator, and change will be removed. There is, and Dr. Fletcher mentioned it just a little bit, something I want to make you aware of. The contract for the KSA and AKSA will be out for bid, which could affect future administrations, especially in the 2028 and beyond. Okay, and then next slide, please. It is important to remember that in the Kentucky's accountability system, it is shaped by both the state and the federal law. So you've heard us talk a lot about the state part of it, but under the federal requirements, states must measure academic achievement in reading and mathematics, growth or another academic indicator, progress in English language proficiency, graduation rate, and at least one school quality and student success indicator. And you often hear that referred to as the SQSS. Next slide, please. So the new accountability indicators will be performance in reading and mathematics, science and social studies achievement, individual student growth, English learner progress, chronic absenteeism, post-secondary readiness, and graduation rate. So with that, I'm going to pause here and turn it over to Jennifer, unless there's any questions. And she's going to talk to us more in depth about individual student growth.
Thank you, Shara. Next slide, please. And next one. Okay, so in the individual student growth was the component that was most supported throughout the development of the Kentucky United We Learn new reimagined accountability system. Over 90%, I think it was 92% of respondents to a survey supported moving from change to an individual student growth measure. So in Kentucky, we have both state and federal laws that we must adhere to in developing a school state accountability system. So what the ESSA, the Every Student Succeeds Act, allows is an indicator, an other academic indicator or growth. So now growth can be included in schools that are not high schools. So student growth is measured by an approved peer-reviewed state assessment. So that comes from ESSA. And that's an important point in the fact that our state assessment, our Kentucky Summative Assessment and our alternate Kentucky Summative Assessment are both peer-reviewed. And what that means is that those assessments go through a process where we have technical experts looking at evidence that our state test meets technical requirements to be included in a school accountability system to meet ESSA requirements. So, you know, there's a lot of conversations on which people would like to use their own local interim assessments to demonstrate growth. But looking at our state assessment is the peer-reviewed assessment that Kentucky uses for growth. They can also use an other academic indicator, which is what we have been doing in Kentucky prior to this change. We have been using the state assessment results in science, social studies, and writing as that other academic indicator. So now that we are shifting to individual student growth, we can use the growth as that meeting that requirement. For high schools in the state, they may include student growth measured and reported again by that state peer-reviewed assessment. So if you'll go to the next slide. So why include growth in an accountability system? Why did people support it? Because growth shows the influence that the schools have on their students. The focus on growth allows systems to better recognize progress, especially for students that have not yet made that level of proficiency. So providing this individual student growth acknowledges the meaningful gains that students have or are taking if they have not met that proficiency level. So it provides a more complex, a complete, fair practice or picture that the school has of their students and what they're offering their students. By capturing the progress that the same students make over time, rather than comparing different groups of students across years, which is seen as individual student, moving from change to individual student growth. It also offers insights for our educators, our families, the public, showing how effective schools are in supporting learning for all of our students. For example, some schools with high proficiency rates may show a limited growth, but on the other side, schools that have lower proficiency lower proficiency rates may demonstrate growth or strong growth because their students are making substantial gains from those lower achievement levels. So incorporating growth helps give a balance to our state accountability system where it's not all about just achievement, but it provides that broader picture of how the students are progressing along that continuous improvement. So the next slide. So there's not one right answer or one right type of growth model. There are a variety of models of student growth that states use. There is a variety, and it really just comes down to what our state wants to get out of growth. So there are lots of decisions to make. There's lots of technical, there's lots of policy decisions to make. But what it really is grounded in what the Commonwealth wants out of their school accountability system. And we've heard a lot from our Kentucky United We Learn Council. Hopefully you were able to take part in some of the surveys, the small group discussions, the town halls that we had. We heard a lot around individual student growth and the overall accountability system as we were out. So it's informed by what your desires are for use, for who uses it, the time frame that it's used, and lots of varying opinions on individual student growth. Next slide, please. As I've mentioned, the difference between change or improvement or an individual student growth is that individual student growth looks at each individual student and how they perform in their reading and math. So for example, we're looking at Megan and how she did on her fourth grade assessment compared to what Megan and how she scored in her fifth grade assessment. Whereas change, on the other hand, looks at different cohorts of students. So we're looking at fourth grade math in 2024 compared to fourth grade math in 2025. So we know those students are different. So change is really looking at school and those cohorts of students, Whereas growth, on the other hand, looks at the individual student and how they are progressing. So just a little bit about growth versus change there. Next slide, please. Now, we have had some conversations about how the model of individual student growth. And we've had some conversation around high school growth and including growth at high schools. So I'd like first for you to think about including growth at high school. And it's technically a possibility because we've got reading and math at 8th grade, and we've got reading and math at 10th grade. So it's technically possible to do that. Some considerations that the Kentucky Board of Education considered is the fact that students in 10th grade have varying pathways to get to the reading and math there. Some students take advanced placement courses. Some take more basic math or reading courses to get to 10th grade. So there's some conversation about high school, including growth at high school. But there is also a bit of concern on the other hand. So we'd really like your input on that. And so as you're thinking about that, also, we've heard a good bit around two different models of individual student growth. One being student growth percentiles, which Kentucky has had experience in. The other one is around categorical growth. Using a value table. We've also had experiences in those as well. Right now, those are the two kind of models that are bubbling to the top and getting the most conversation. Now, I will say that we've met with a variety of stakeholder groups like this one. And it seems that the value table and using categorical growth is seeming to be the more favorable approach. So as you're thinking about it, the student growth percentile, what it does is it compares students to each other. So how the students are growing in relation to other students. So if you've had children in your lives or babies, you would take them to the doctor and they would say, oh, your child's in the 75th percentile. And what that does is that compares their height or weight to the other children that are of the same age, and you get comparison to others. It would be similar for reading and math achievement. You would know if the student was in the 75th percentile, the student has grown more than 75% of the other students. So that's just a brief introduction to student growth percentiles. And you may remember that in Kentucky before, if you were around in 2018, 2019, somewhere along in there, we had the catch up, keep up, move up model that was based on student growth percentiles. The other model that is a bit more favorable at this point is the categorical growth model. We're using a value table, and that's looking at where the student is in one year and where they are in the next. For example, if they are novice low in 1 year and they move to novice high, or they're apprentice high and they move to proficient in that model. So that is comparing the student to then that category. So where those cut points are along those level of proficiency of novice, apprentice, proficient, distinguished. So those are the two types of comparisons of the growth models. One, comparing student growth percentile to other students. The other, comparing the students to categorical growth. Commissioner, I see that you've come on camera. Would you like to add anything to that conversation before we turn it over to our fine teachers for their feedback?
Well, I don't want to sway anybody's opinion, so I will keep my opinion to myself. I'm really just wanting to hear what other people think as far as this, but this is an opportunity for us. It really is to move from the change element to an individual student growth. And when we did the town halls, the phrase that I used quite often is, where did you get the child and where did you take them? So at the end of the third grade year, this is their test score. And then at the end of the fourth grade, this is their test score. Did they grow? Did they increase, gain knowledge, things of that nature? I will say, we have some experience with both. There was, one of the things with the categorical piece that, if a student was proficient in third grade mathematics and then proficient in fourth grade mathematics, they grew. Just because they kept the level of proficiency, they became proficient on the fourth grade mathematics content. So in my opinion, they grew, and I think we can all agree on that. Percentiles, there's a lot of people that have a lot of positives about that too. But again, just some comments. I'm excited about this part. Outside of the local accountability piece, to me, this is the second most exciting piece of of House Bill 257. So I'll stop there. Won't try to sway anyone one way or the other, Jennifer. So make sure Dr. Stafford keeps me. I'll keep my opinions there. But again, I do think either would be an improvement over change. I will say that. A huge improvement over change, my opinion.
Thank you, Commissioner. So I invite our teachers to share your thoughts, your opinions. We've asked a few things, a few questions in regards to categorical growth, student growth percentiles, and also high school growth. So I see Megan,
Jennifer, I will say one more thing. I will say that I've listened to other people particularly about high school growth. And I started with one opinion about high school growth, but listening to people's comments, that's really changed my opinion about high school growth. So, and Dr. Stafford knows which way I was leaning one way or the other about high school growth. But just listening some of the other people's opinions and how you get there, there's some great arguments. So again, whichever way you're talking about with growth, please know that you can still sway the commissioner one way or the other too. So feel free to have your honest opinion about that, please.
I do see a hand up. Tyler.
Yes, good morning, everyone. So glad to be here with you today. As a high school teacher, I do have one question in regards to Dr. Stafford, what you were mentioning a moment ago about the jump from 8th to 10th grade, being that there is no state assessment in 9th grade. So if the high school did move to the student growth model, how exactly would that look from the jump from 8th to 10th grade? Would 9th grade begin taking a state assessment to measure that growth, or how exactly would that look?
Yeah, great question, Tyler. So anytime that you have two assessments and 2 points of time, you can make comparisons of that. So every year, 3 through 8, we have testing in reading and math. So that's a really natural fit from summative assessment in the spring of 1 year to the spring of the next year. So for high school, it's technically possible. We've talked with our Kentucky Technical Advisory Council. They're a group of national experts that say it is technically possible to go from 8th grade reading to 10th grade reading, from 8th grade math to 10th grade math. It's skipping a year, just the skip year growth. So again, it's technically possible to do that. I think that what we're looking for is that something that would support you in, or do you have the desire to add that indicator to the high school?
Yeah, for sure. I think too, with the new accountability model, the fact that we are trying to reduce the testing time too, I think that if it's possible to have that skip year growth without adding an assessment to ninth grade, I think that's a great way to go about it.
Thank you.
And Dr. Stafford, I may, if you're looking at going from 8th to 10th grade, I think growth is very, very important, but there's two arguments here, well, multiple arguments, but I'll give you two. I think growth is one of the best measures for any school. Because, if you're a distinguished school and or you got distinguished students and they stay distinguished, yes, they're growing. But what about these districts that are taking students that are scoring in that maybe in the 5th percentile and they're moving them to the 30th percentile? They may not be proficient, but man, that's a huge amount of growth. So the same thing when you go from 8th to 10th grade. But the other thing is the pathway for students to go from 8th to 10th grade looks very different now for different students. What exactly are students taking in 8th, 9th, and 10th grade as it relates to mathematics may look totally different. So how does that comparison look? So as far as the two, I would not want to add another test in the 9th grade. We do not want to add testing. We're trying to reduce testing. So I do agree with that. But how does that look from 8th to 10th grade? So again, two thoughts there, two ways to look at that as you look at growth for high schools.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you, Tyler. Is it Amber? Do I see Amber's? Yes.
Yes. I'm just wondering about the chronic absenteeism. That's something that we deal with a lot here in my district. And what are some ways that other counties overcome that and things like that so we can get a gauge on what we need to do here?
So Amber, that's our next topic. You're teeing up our next conversation. So can we finish this growth conversation and then we'll get into those? Is that okay?
That's fine.
Thank you. Any
Hi,
other
this-
thoughts about growth? I see Jason.
Yes, thank you. I know that in our district in Russell County, we use MAP. And MAP, of course, tracks growth from the assessment they take at the beginning of the school year to the spring of that same year. I was wondering, as far as it relates to growth, of course, I think you're talking about from grade level to grade level. I teach 8th grade. So you would take the 7th grade assessment and compare that student growth to the 8th grade assessment. I know they're the same standards, but it is a different test. And I know that's especially true in math with the different standards. Is there any way to consider growth from the beginning of one school year to the end, as opposed to one year to the next?
Dr. Stafford, I'll take that on. In the current model, no. One of the things that we had that we were trying to get, again, we talked about a little bit earlier, was to have an interim system that aligned with the state test. So, currently, let's say, well, Pearson is our current vendor that uses their state testing. So if they were to develop interim assessments similar to MAP, and districts wanted to opt in, it would have been possible. But, and I'm just going to be blunt. The biggest argument against that would be if your beginning of the year is not part of your accountability piece, then how many districts would actually bottom out that first one to get high growth? Gameplay. And I hate to put it that way, but there would be some fear about gameplay. Now, I think most districts would try to be upfront. We want our students to do their very best on day one in MAP. We want to see where they are, but how much. You hear the horror stories, and I'll give you an example of horror stories of, I've heard students talk about how they really didn't take the culture survey seriously. As they were encouraged by their districts to just mark all high scores because it, quote unquote, didn't matter and they could be out quickly. This was actually mentioned in our cool council. So we really, by having, since the end of 3rd grade would be a part of your, I'll call it your status score, and it's part of accountability. And then the fourth grade is also part of your status score, then students would be very motivated, and districts would be very motivated for students to be high performing on both or do the very best on both. If you start off in that beginning, and if it's not a part of accountability of status, then there could possibly be some gameplay. Now, if we change that so that each score would be a part of accountability, that could be different. But that would be something to have to happen in the future. Did Dr. Stafford, anything you'd like to add to that? I know, and again, I hate to be blunt about that, but that was one of the big fears when we talked to legislators.
Yeah, Jason, what I would add to Commissioner's explanation there is that your interim assessments play an important role in
do.
your overall your instruction and assessment,
Absolutely.
in your continuous improvement. So it all should work together, because it gives you information at a period and point in time that you will utilize for a different purpose other than school or state accountability. So your interim assessments are vitally important, just not part of the state assessments or the state accountability. Wendy, I see your hand up.
Yes, I just wanted to say thank you all for changing from change to growth. I'm in a school where 70% of our students are Hispanic, and they make huge growth in the beginning, in a whole school year. But that doesn't get seen. And then because the state assessment is viewed highly by the community, then schools like mine get considered bad schools because we don't have the students that are proficient. So I really appreciate that. Question that I have is, are we going to discuss ways to make sure that we can get our assessments quicker? I know back in the day when we had CATs, we got it a little bit faster. And then as a teacher, I felt like I had relevant information that could help me, which I don't feel like our current system gives me any information to help me improve, like the CATS assessment did in the past.
So as Shara mentioned, there is going to be a request for proposal released for our main contract. We're going to put the Kentucky Summative Assessment alongside of the alternate Kentucky Summative Assessment. And one of the pieces of that RFP is to look for ways to bring back student information more quickly. And so we're really wanting to and have a desire to return information for our teachers more quickly. So in addition, as I mentioned to Jason, your interim assessment, your classroom assessments gives you a fuller picture. So your state assessment gives you one piece of the assessment puzzle, but your classroom information that you have there is going to by far give you more information about that student and what they can do and their knowledge, skills, and ability than the state assessment ever will be able to. So it's one piece of the whole picture of evidence for your students.
Yeah, I do understand that, but now every school system has to put their KSA data on their on their website. And so when people deem a district, they don't pull our yearly, assessment, our local assessment. They pull with that KSA and they're like, this is what your score says. So we're going to do something different to make sure that that is like blended together, where that is not the gleaming situation. We just don't see that score overall, because that's
Well,
what, I said, the community sees.
that's a state lawmaker question, because that's where that requirement came from. That's not when that, to me, the answer to that, in my opinion, is a well-developed local accountability model where that becomes your dashboard, that becomes your information. Then you can include those interim assessments. And we have districts that we have districts that it seems like their community looks more towards that local accountability dashboard than they do that state testing score. I'll use Fleming County, for example. Fleming County in northeastern Kentucky. Their dashboard on their local accountability, and they put it out quarterly, and the changes as far as their interim assessments and things of that nature, it, just talking with their superintendent and talking with members of the community, it appears that their community is more bought into what do our interim assessments say versus what our state assessments say. So with that being said, we are trying to get that information back to you more quickly. That's what we want to do with our request for proposals for vendors when the next assessment cycle comes in, to have that, because we want to get that information to you as quickly as possible. But with that being said, the best answer I think for that is if you have a district that has that well-developed local accountability model where everyone has been a part of that development and people see that data. I'll use Rockcastle County as another as an example. They put out essentially an ebook that has all the data their community asked for, and they put that out each year. But it has all their state testing in it, but it also has other data points that their community and members have asked for. So they call theirs community-based. I think it's community-based accountability system is what they call it. The CBAS is what they call theirs.
Okay, so we just need to train our community to look elsewhere and then do a better job.
That's what they've done. That's what they've done.
That's really good. Do they have the same banner as every district with
They
the
do.
KSA? Okay.
They do.
All right.
Every district, and Dr. Staff, correct me if I'm wrong, every district is required to have that banner, and I think it's even
Okay.
X font and everything of that nature. It has to be
Right.
part of your
It is the
website.
But Commissioner,
Okay. Well, thank you
I dropped the link to Rockcastle's on the chat.
Oh, thank you,
thank
Brian.
you so much.
Thank you, Wendy. Tyler, you have your hand up again?
Yes, thank you. Just building off of what Wendy had mentioned a minute ago, and also what Shara had mentioned earlier about the new vendor process for the KSA and the AKSA. Is it possible for KDE to prioritize when looking for a new vendor for the KSA, getting those scores back as quickly as possible, maybe even quicker than we do now? Just for the sake of getting to use that data for meaningful instructional purposes?
Sure, that is a component that we have asked for within the RFP, and the vendors will be evaluated on their responses to that.
Great, that's glad to hear that.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you. Emmanuel?
I just think second and to what Tyler and Wendy and everyone else is saying, that it really will be an important component whenever you guys are looking for those. If you can definitely impact the turnaround time, or definitely support that. So I wholeheartedly support everyone that just mentioned all those things. And really, in a teacher's thing, just like they were highlighting, that's one thing that you really want to get more to actually eventually. I mean, I know the classroom assessments when they're aligned to state standards and so forth are really imperative and the best we can get in the classroom setting too. But when we get the other meaningful feedback overall, that really seems to impact a lot at the school level too, because we have a lot of administrators looking to see what we can do and so forth. So that really helps a lot when we get that. If we can get a better.
Thank you. Thank you.
Wendy,
right.
I do want to make one other comment, and I'm going to go back to Fleming County. People may not know this, but 15 years ago, Fleming County was a PLA district, or their high school was a PLA school. So even though they were one of the quote unquote bottom performing districts in the state, first of all, they increased their test scores, but they also trained their district. So it is possible to take a quote unquote a low performing school and first of all increase your student achievement, but also to train your district to say our students are so much more than just a test score. And that's where the local accountability comes in. I'm a firm believer you have to have those foundational skills. You have to have the foundations in math, reading, science, and social studies. But I truly believe that kids are so much more than just a test score. So how do we give kids the opportunity, what we call vibrant learning, where they have defenses of learning, they have project-based learning, they have those other things. But it's hard to get into that mode when your community is like, okay, we need to see improvement in test scores. So there's a balance, but still yet, as you move forward, I think that when you think about training your district, it has been done, even with some of, what was considered to be a low performing district years ago.
Great. Thank you, Commissioner. At this point, I'm going to turn, if we'll go to the next slide. And we had some discussion around and questions. Amber asked about chronic absenteeism. So we want your feedback on chronic absenteeism and your priorities and what you would wait for in the accountability system on chronic absenteeism. So Shara, would you take us through some introductory, and then we'll invite our teachers to provide feedback?
Sure. Thank you, Jennifer. So next slide, please. So in the 24-25 school year, Kentucky's chronic absenteeism rate was at 25%, according to the Kentucky School Report Card. This is not unique to Kentucky, as more than 30 states already include chronic absenteeism indicator within their accountability systems. So under ESSA, that Jennifer mentioned earlier, chronic absenteeism may fit within the school quality and student success indicator category. It's also important to note that chronic absenteeism includes both excused and unexcused absences when determining the student status. And a question I get a lot is, of those 30 states, what is some of the weights that they use? And now this is not scientific or a full range of all 30 states, but of the few that I looked at, it's a low percentage in their weighting of that, anywhere from 5 to 10%. So it's relatively a low number. Excuse me. Next slide, please. House Bill 257, as you can see on your slide, defines chronic absenteeism as a student engagement as measured by chronic absenteeism, which shall be defined as a student missing 10% or more of a yearly school time for excused or unexcused reasons throughout the school year. Now, we've been in a lot of meetings with different stakeholders, and we have shared with them that this definition is not on your screen, but we've shared with them the federal definition of chronic absenteeism, and it's very similar to how House Bill 257 defines it. And that definition is a student missing at least 10% of school days, or approximately 18 days in a year for any reason, excused or unexcused. So ESSA states that it must be measured for half a year. And so Kentucky defines a half year as 100 days. Therefore, this indicator could be measured at 50 days enrolled to ensure accountability without having what we call the track back. So the key difference between these two definitions, or how they're measured, is more important. So the federal definition is based on school days missed, while the state is currently measuring in minutes of instructional time missed. So an example that I use is a student being chronically absent for 50 days in, say, Carter County, chronically absent for 50 days in Boyd County, but then the student found their people, or the situation improved, and the student has been in Bath County for 100 days. And so with that 50-day rule, the student is accountable at Carter County for their time that they had them, at Boyd County for those 50 days as well, and then in Bath, rather than the 100-day rule with the track back, where Bath County would be accountable for the student being chronically absent during the time that was spent in Carter and Bath. And again, we discussed this with many different groups, and we've gathered their feedback in and their thoughts around chronic absenteeism. During those discussions, the groups have favored the current measure from the federal government for chronic absenteeism. And another, because it really, with it being an unexcused and excused time, when you're measuring in minutes, that matters. Because, for example, my oldest son, he had to have braces, and we had to travel to an orthodontist. And once a month, I had to go and pull him out of school for that orthodontist appointment. And so we did that every month throughout the year. And then say he had the flu in the fall, and then another illness in the spring. And so that he would have been labeled as chronically absent. So with the federal measurement, it helps with that, where it's not, so his time for those appointments wouldn't necessarily have been counted if under the federal meaning and calculation. So with that, I'll stop here and see if you have any question, or if Jennifer or the commissioner has anything else to add.
Thank you, Shara. I think that I would just add, when considering chronic absenteeism, that it's important to recognize that not all absences are the same. There's not the same circumstances, and I think that's what we're trying to be considerate of, and consider that there's special attention that needs to be given to medically fragile students. That there are the routine appointments that Shara mentioned, or the therapies our students need to be part of, or these regular recurring absences that are beyond the student's control. So there are, as Shara mentioned, two calculations. The state calculation that utilizes minutes, and the federal calculation that utilizes days, where a student would have to be absent at least a half a day. So when we talk with particularly our directors of people personnel, they were very supportive of utilizing the federal calculation of half day, whole day, or whole days, that where the student would have to be absent more than half the day. We also are considering, as Shara mentioned, the fact that for our other indicators, with the exception of graduation rate, we utilize a 100-day rule. And that's been a well-established policy for indicators for years. But with this one, just with the nature and the tracking of students in their different situation, we want to consider it a bit differently, because the indicator is different. So looking at chronic absenteeism being a 50-day accountability, a half a year. So ESSA requires that the student be in the school accountability for at least 50 days. So other states have been approved for inclusion of chronic absenteeism for 50 days. So Shara gave a great example of different situations for each student for a student in different districts. And so utilizing that 50 days would eliminate some of that track back that we get with 100-day accountability. So thoughts about chronic absenteeism as it relates to school accountability. I know, Amber, you had a question. Does that explanation and background help you with where we're considering for chronic absenteeism? Oh, I see Wendy's hand came up. Wendy.
Mm,
Well, you can go ahead and finish Amber first because you.
Yeah, well, I don't know that Amber has her
Oh.
hand up.
Okay.
Yeah.
Oh, go ahead, Amber. Go ahead, Amber.
Yeah, I was just going to say that did answer my question. Thank you.
Perfect.
Good, good.
Wonderful. Thank you.
So have you all made a decision as to using the state, the days or the percentage yet?
No, that's what we are
Oh, okay.
inviting
Oh,
you
okay.
to
Okay.
provide feedback on. We
Yeah.
want you to have
Okay.
voice and input on this.
Well, I do, just like Shar said, I have a couple students this past year that would go to the doctor once a month. So saying that they would go and they would come back, they wouldn't miss a half a day of school. So that would be, yeah, definitely good for them. But also, I feel like this is necessary because students miss school so much. And, I guess if we would really encourage and, just say this is part of our assessment, I like the idea. Now, is there going to be anything with, maybe the next year, schools improving their attendance? Will they get some points or, I would like to see that if that's possible as well. Since we're doing growth academically, are we going to do growth for chronic absenteeism as well?
Right. That's a really good point that you bring
Yeah.
up, Wendy, that the way it's written is it's the status of that school year of the students.
Oh, okay.
And it doesn't say improvement
Okay.
or change or growth or it doesn't say those words in it. So we are interpreting the law as to be that the status of that current year.
This year to year. Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yes. Thank you. Very good questions.
You see another hand?
I do. I see. Is that Emmanuel? Yep.
Yeah.
Okay.
And I'm in favor of the one where it's either the whole day or half day. And
Right.
pretty much 100% of the reasons why Shara was highlighting those two. In Eastern Kentucky and even in Southeastern Kentucky too, sometimes the students may have doctor's appointments that might be feasible for a half day, but if they were to leave early or something, or have to take the whole day or so forth, the minutes that could get tricky, like Ms. Savage was highlighting there. A lot of the students might be driving to Johnson City, Kingsport, Bristol, Knoxville, Tennessee, or Lexington, or Corbin, or wherever, but each of those require a level of travel that's involved. Even if it's just to Pikeville, that's still 2 hours sometimes for some of our students. So that does, hopefully factor into that in a good way there. And that would actually, show compassion for the students too and the families of those so that, when it comes to big issues with chronic absenteeism, it won't really be as big of a factor at that point.
Thank you. Thank you. Okay, if there are no other comments, and I don't want to rush anyone, but I do see that we're getting close on time here, and I know you've got a couple of other activities. If we can go to the next slide. And the next one, please. Let's look at the weights of each indicator. And this is the current system and the weights that each of the indicators contribute to the overall. So you can see values here. You can see priorities that the Kentucky Board of Education has set. So if you just look at the table, you look at the numbers, you can see that when they set this for the current accountability system, that the reading and math is a priority. It also notes for you where their relative priorities are for the other components. Now, there are some guidelines that ESSA puts in place that reading and math and the other academic indicator have to have reading and math and English learner progress have to have the majority of weight at the elementary middle school, and then at the high school, it is the reading, math, and the graduation rate has to have the priority weights. So you can see how that the other indicators are then contribute to the overall. So if you go to the next slide, this is a table of the upcoming indicators for elementary, middle, and high. And as you see here, the priority that just below there needs to be at the bottom there. So reading, math, growth, graduation rate, and English language progress need to have the more substantial weight than the others. And the others would then include post-secondary readiness, chronic absenteeism, and the state assessment results in science and social studies. So I invite you to have input or share your thoughts on any of these indicators. For example, you may say, I would like to see growth have a high weight in relation to reading and math. Or you could say chronic absenteeism. I'd like to see it, quite low or quite high or something like that. So just a little bit of your feedback and your thoughts around the relative weights. Wendy.
Yes, I would like to see the growth to be the third highest, because that's, after, the indication of I'm doing well in reading or math, or I'm improving. But if that could be the third highest, that would be probably very feasible to show that as a school that we are moving students academically.
So what would be your second? I'm gathering that reading and math is your first, but what would?
I guess, well, you know what? If I have a choice,
You do.
let's do reading and math first, growth second, science and social studies third.
Thank you. Thank you.
All right.
Appreciate that. Any other thoughts or feedback on what you would see as a priority? And I know we have some high school teachers on here as well. So I invite you to think about post-secondary readiness, graduation rate, Emmanuel.
I'm really big on post-secondary readiness, because once we get them graduate, or once the students are able to graduate and earn their high school diploma, they need to be able to do something at that point too, whether it's college or the professional world and so forth. So I'm thinking like, dual credit. I teach dual credit English and dual credit Spanish. So I'm really big on actually, the students are getting their dual credit classes and so forth for the time they graduate. I'm also kind of big on English language learners. That's always been a passion project of mine. My dissertation was about that as well. So I don't know, 5%, that seems what we've had previously, but there's a lot of factors I know that go into that too, especially with all the WIDA levels and proficiency levels. So but that is a passion of mine, but definitely post-secondary readiness as well there, and chronic absenteeism.
Thank you. All right, well, I thank you very much. I think, Shara, you have one more slide, because we are looking at changing the inclusion and how our English learners are included. So we've heard a couple of teachers on say that they've got a lot of English learners. So would you share with them around the options and the flexibility that we're going to move toward?
Yes, yes. Next slide, please. Thank you, Jennifer. Next slide. And the next one, please. Okay, so so ESSA that you've heard us mention several times here today does allow flexibilities that every Student Succeeds Act provides for English learner students who have been enrolled in the U.S. Schools for less than 12 months. So the couple options that we are exploring is option one, allows students to be exempt from the ELA assessments during their first year in U.S. schools. Option two allows students to also take the ELA assessments in their first year. In this option, year one, the results would be reported but not used in accountability. Then year two, the results would be included in the individual student growth indicator. And then by year three, the students would then be fully included in the accountability calculations for both academic achievement and individual student growth. So I did want to point out that now House Bill 257 did not make any changes to this, but we wanted to explore the flexibilities offered by the federal government. So any questions surrounding that or your feedback on this particular topic? I'm not seeing. Oh,
Yep, yeah, Emmanuel.
you
So I can see benefits and disadvantages to both of those. If they're exempt from it, I obviously would take into a lot of factors, and it actually would kind of alleviate a lot of stress too. Obviously, and I'm sure y'all have already considered this, but option two, of course, getting some data to work with would be
Yes.
useful too, that they can build on,
Yes.
and that would build
Right.
on up there. And would there be any comparisons or connections with the RETA scores when you all were, or when this has been considered, like the proficiency levels, incoming students or newcomers and so forth? Or
That's right, Emmanuel. You're thinking right along the lines of this flexibility. Because currently we use option one, that they recently arrived students do not take English and math. Well, they take it for participation.
Right.
But so we would move to this option two with the fact that now we have growth, we're able to move toward this where that they would not be used in the accountability their first year, but moving toward growth in that second year. And so we've got a group, we call it the English Learner Progress small group that is looking at data. And we've had a couple of meetings with them already, and we're bringing forward, like we did with the individual student growth, different models for them to look at and utilizing student data from Kentucky. So they are using empirical data to make decisions on that. We've not finalized any of the decisions, the technical decisions, but we do know that we are moving toward option two in the future. Thank you. I see a couple hands up.
Okay.
Um,
I'm not sure their names.
I guess I was first. I have a lot of students who are English language learners in my classroom. I like the idea of option two, but I know that some of my kids who I have them for their 1 to 2 years in the country, something like they grow, but they have much more limited growth than like what I see from students who are going from year 2 in the country to year 3. Like that's typically where I've seen the most the biggest jumps and the biggest changes, because it's like that that after that first year, even if they've been here a year, they're not quite ready to process and to take it like an academic test of that level, especially a grade level. So like I'd be interested to see how I could use that data to see in addition to like access, but I don't know how that'll affect the individual student growth indicator and everything.
So this would be the English learner progress, and it would be for students, all English learners, that would take the WIDA assessment. So we're looking at that growth model for English learners that would be included in that English learner progress. So looking at it a bit differently.
Right.
So the inclusion here is for in the exemption is for a recently arrived, but the EL progress indicator is all of our English learners. And I think we do include English learners after they exit the program for a couple years.
Yes. Then, Wendy, you have your hand up?
Yes, I was just making sure I understood. So this is taking both the access assessment and KSA, or is this really just focusing on taking KSA?
So the flexibility of option 2 is KSA and AKSA.
Okay.
That they would recently arrived students, it will take the assessment. So if they are recently arrived, whereas right now we do option 1, that they're exempt for that first year.
Right.
Option 2, then they come into, or they're recently arrived, they take the assessment, they set that baseline. Then the next year, then they would take the next year's assessment and be included in individual student growth.
Okay.
For the
Is there
realignment.
an option for option 3 where you could use option 1 as because I just feel like first they're not ready. I love option 2, by the matter of fact, but they're not ready for the first. They're not ready to take an assessment of this caliber the first year. If you were to use option 2, could they take the assessment with supports, like with the reader? I know in my school we use electronic readers, which are still very difficult, but could they maybe have a human reader or just more supports? Because that's just, I just know how overwhelming it is for a student to take it. And then if we're going to expect them to take it, even though it doesn't count, but it's for, I don't know. It's just, I just see, I just know I had a student that actually was a second year student, and just to see that little girl cry, and because she wanted to do her very best, and she wanted to do her very best for me, it broke my heart. Broke my heart. But I just feel like a student is not ready at year 1, but maybe year 2 they're ready to take the assessment. I don't know, just thinking about that. And then the other question that I have is, if this option is going to be in effect, how will that be for schools like mine that are 70% of our students are Hispanics? We would not have a lot of students really being accounted for. So, think about that as well.
Okay. We certainly, we understand the impact on our students and our staff on the change, because it is overwhelming. It is overwhelming, and especially if the student has been there and they've recently arrived within a short time frame, say 2 weeks or a month, and you sit down with them with a state test in front of them. We certainly do understand that. Unfortunately, there's not the ability through ESSA for a combination of that we've seen a state to be approved for to utilize option 1 or option 2. It's just that ESSA or the Department of Education has not been flexible enough to provide the opportunity or approval for option 3.
Any other questions or feedback before we close out? Got one more slide to just give you some information before we close out. Okay. All right, well, then we'll move on to the next slide. So as you can see, we have been to several of the stakeholders, and we started right out of the gate in April and in May, and then in June, we've tried to hit as many groups as we could to gather feedback from stakeholders, just like we've done with you here today. The most important I want to draw your attention to is that we will take the first read of this bill to the board in August, and then they will see the second read come October, and then hopefully that we'll have this out for public comment during the November and December timeframe and get this into place in early winter or early spring of 27. So with that, we'll close out. Jennifer, you have anything to add before we sign off?
I just want to say thank you to all the members for your incredible feedback. We really appreciate the conversation. And Megan, I'll turn it back over to you and apologize for the limited time frame here that you've got left. But we just sincerely thank you for your conversation today.
Thank you all so much for being here.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Our next item is setting priorities.
And Megan, sorry to
yeah.
interrupt you, but out of respect for everybody's time, if it is all right with the group, which would have to have a motion and such, but if we'd be okay with tabling this topic and making it our very first topic for our September meeting, so that we can respect everyone's time as we've already run past our meeting time.
Okay, would anybody like to make a motion to table setting priorities for the TAC for our next meeting?
This is Wendy Young. I will make a motion to table setting priorities to September.
Thank you. Would anybody like to second?
I will second.
Jason Davidson will second.
Thank you so much. And I will run through the names quickly to conduct a proper vote, and we will go from there. I would vote in favor of tabling Amber Hinkle,
Aye.
Kevin Daly, Scott Bratcher, Amy Leesgang,
Aye.
Brooke Leffingwell, Jessica Hobson, Mandy Perez,
Aye.
Kristen Morgan, Sarah Lizer, Wendy Young,
Aye.
Emmanuel Anama Green,
Aye.
Tyler Saylor,
Aye.
Joseph Stivers, Robin Ballinger,
Aye.
Becky Spies, Tony Prater, Corey Burns,
Aye.
Nick Schaffner, Jason Davidson,
Aye.
Casey Page,
Aye.
and Shane Baker.
Aye.
Thank you. The ayes have it, and we have collectively voted to table setting goals for our next meeting. So with that, it is time for adjournment. Would anyone like to make a motion to adjourn?
Amber Hinkle, motion to adjourn.
Thank you. Would anyone like to second?
Corey Burns, I'll second.
Thank you, and I will run through the names. I vote in favor of adjournment. Amber,
Aye.
Kevin Daly, Scott Bratcher, Amy Lee Skang, Brooke Leffingwell, Jessica Hobson, Mandy Perez, Kristen Morgan, Sarah Lizer, Wendy Young,
Aye.
Emmanuel Anama Green,
Aye.
Tyler Saylor,
Aye.
Joseph Stivers, Robin Ballinger,
Aye.
Becky Spies, Tony Prater, Corey Burns,
Aye.
Nick Schaffner, Jason Davidson,
Aye.
Casey Page, and Shane Baker.
Aye.
Thank you all so much. Ayes have it, and we have voted to adjourn the meeting. Thank you all so much for being here, and we really appreciate your all's time and participation in the meeting.